Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's a pleasure to be back on this beautiful Monday night. It's no longer a Monday. It's already Tuesday, the 3rd of February, 2026. Why? Because we are 1 hour and 4 minutes late to the time that we are supposed to be here. The reason for that is not one that I'm at liberty to discuss, but I hope you will join the conversation for tonight and we'll go on with our routine discussion, as always is the case. But I do extend my sincere apologies for being that late. But I figured, given the significance of the night, that we shouldn't go down without a broadcast tonight, because the transfer window officially does close tonight or today, depending on what time zone you are in, because practically for you, you could still be way hours behind. Like I keep saying, it's now at 9 p.m., 5 minutes past 9 p.m. UK time. You see Sunderland are winning by 2-0 against Burnley. Well, my prediction for that game had been, I think, a 2-2 draw, but looks like things are not going to go the way I had envisioned them to be. Anyways, so yeah, for Monday Night Football, that game is ongoing between those two Premier League sides. And yeah, my prediction was 2-0. Okay, all right. Looks like you're on course for a perfect score prediction for that game. Let's hope it all plays out well for you. And that game should be in halftime or with the second half bound to, resume. I wasn't catching up on it because I was busy doing some work, and also soon after I had to, get other things out of the way. But yeah, Jesus Christ, come on. Anyways, I hope you guys have had a wonderful day, a wonderful start to the week, a wonderful start to the new month. It's February, the second month of the year officially. I do not know how the first one treated you, but I hope it's been kind to you in one way or the other. Anyways, allow me have our audios tested just to be sure that all devices are well taken care of. Sometimes, with these technology things, you can never be sure whether everything is at par for anybody. In case you're having challenges, do not hesitate to, let me know in case you're struggling to get our voice. But anyways, we'll be talking about some of the key transfer news that are making the rounds. Apparently, Sandro Tonali was offered to Arsenal, but Arsenal never explored the deal. We'll be discussing that because it's been making some of the key headlines in as far as today is concerned. Chetan says, hi, buddy. Chetan, good to have you on the podcast. For those of you that are joining the broadcast, my name is Robert Kesakos, and I'm coming to you live from Kampala, Uganda, where it's 7 minutes past the hour of midnight, meaning the 3rd of February. So for us, it's no longer the 2nd of February, in case you're wondering. Go on your phone and search up Epstein. Why do I need to search up Epstein? Mark Friend 2013. I do not know whether I've had enough or about him, but I've had the name enough to know that it doesn't sound to be good. In any case, that's why our friend Trevor Noah is under fire from Donald John Trump, that's the US president, over his comments or jokes that he made at while presiding over the Grammys as the MC. So really, he made some allegations in reference to that name, with England, with Greenland. For those of you that have watched the clip, you possibly know the joke that I'm trying to refer to. But anyway, so we cannot dwell on that. It's not our forte. It's not our cup of tea. It's not our topic. Ours is football. Football is our sport. That's what we do. That's what we get to talk about every single day, morning and evening. In the morning at 9 a.m. or 9:30 thereabouts, and then at night at 11 p.m. But like I said, I did apologies appreciate or accept my sincere apologies for being 1 hour late for today's broadcast. So, like I said, or like it has its, but before we get to the key gist of tonight's conversation, let's quickly have a review of that game between Sunderland and Burnley, for which the second half has resumed. Jessea says hi. Hi, Jessea. Hello, bro. Good to have you on the podcast. Kindly do me one favor and like the broadcast. But if it's your first time here, please also consider subscribing. Axel Twanzebe's own goal in the 9th minute gave Sunderland the lead, while Habib Diarra did score the other to give Sunderland a 2-0 lead there in that game. So that was in the 32nd minute. Anyways, you say, what are your thoughts on Manchester United performance right now? Right now, they're looking good, but I think they will take concern in the fact that they've conceded 4 goals in the last 2 games. I thought they were not as good against Fulham as they had been in their victory against Arsenal. Regardless, they managed to find a way to win, and I thought Casemiro had a good day. Of course, Cunha getting on the score sheet yet again. Brani Mbeumo was underwhelming, in my opinion. Benjamin Sesko had a brilliant cameo. Manel Ugarte, I'm still not sold about him. So yeah, I thought that while the result does not reflect what I did witness on the match day, United won the game because when they went into a 2-0 lead thanks to Casemiro's goal in the first half still, and then of course the goal from Mateta Cunha in the second half, which gave United the 2-0 lead. But then Raul Jimenez scored from the spot. That was, I think, around the 85th minute. And then in the 91st minute, or the first minute of stoppage time, Kevin scored a brilliant or stunning strike to give what they thought had been the equalizer, to at least steal a point away from Old Trafford for Fulham. But while they were still in that celebratory mode, then they had the lapse in concentration on the other end, and they got punished with Bruno Fernandes providing, I think, his 12th assist of the season, of the campaign, when he assisted Benjamin Sesko. Again, Fulham, I thought they defended really, really poorly in that moment. They afforded Benjamin Sesko a lot of time on the ball. I mean, he receives the ball, takes the turn, because I think he had his back to the goal, and he receives the ball, controls it with nobody closing him down. He has the space and uses sort of the defender as a shadow, or as the obstacle to obscure Bernard Leno's vision to the ball, and he puts that in the back of the net, and Manchester United walked away with all 3 points, which put them back into 4th place on the Premier League table standings, in as far as that particular, game was concerned. So really, I think if you're a United fan, you will take the win, because at this stage in the season, when you are fighting to finish in the top 4, when you're fighting against relegation, when you're fighting to win a Premier League title, depending on what your objectives are for those respective teams, you will take any result that is a win, regardless of how you arrive to it. So yeah, but I hope that answers your question. But of course, what Manchester United are experiencing is that sort of new manager bounce. And I said this straight on for match day 1, when as soon as Michael Carrick took over as the interim, I said that he had simply returned Manchester United to the basics, playing players in the right positions, and yeah, they've been better for it. When you look at Bruno Fernandes, he's been better for it. When you looked at the performances of the likes of Luke Shaw, the likes of Diego Dalot, have been some of the improved players. With what's his name, Casemiro not being played sort of not being played with Bruno Fernandes. He's actually played alongside a bit of a conservative, another conservative midfielder, or what you would have as a typical number 8, which then means that oftentimes he's not left isolated in that midfield when he's playing with Kobe Mainu, and that they go about their business interchangeably, and then even in their shape when they are in the offensive, when they are in the defensive, the way what you ordinarily have as wingers, attacking it a little bit inside to try and help that midfield. So it gives them that bit of effectiveness when it comes to the counter press. Nonetheless, I still thought that our Fulham were quite brilliant on the day. They just defended poorly overall. When you look at possession, they dominated possession to the tune of 58%. That was Fulham. They had an XG of almost 2.0, but which was 1.94 compared to United's 1.79. Both teams had 6 shots on target. Really, Fulham had 14 in total, and Manchester United had 13. So when I say that the end result does not reflect the proceedings of the actual game, I thought Fulham deserved a point out of that game, but they will only have themselves to blame for their lapses in concentration in defense that cost them, getting at least a point out of that game. I hope that addresses your question. I'm trying to pronounce your name. Hakiemi. Is that how you pronounce it? Jesus Christ. Apologies if I've mispronounced your name, but I hope that answers your question. Then we have Chatan says, sir, I was more for WC cricket. Sorry, I understand, Chatan. I've said this before. The one thing I appreciate about people from India, from Pakistan, from West Indies, from Bangladesh is that even though they are ordinarily or largely cricket fans, they've been kind enough to lend us their ears and time and support this channel. And the minimal growth that we've obtained on this channel has been partly due to their credit. So I understand if your expectations were cricket. And I remember when I was starting this podcast, I was intentional on having a name that reflects the overall instance of the channel, to call it football. That word is key, so that I do not get people lost into the whole sphere of sports. While I'm appreciative of every sport in its kind, I'm also self-aware that I cannot give you the very best of analysis of reports and news in general regarding every little bit of sport. Once in a while, we'll pick up on conversations or on critical news from different sports and congratulate different personalities depending on their winnings. But yeah, that's it. Then we have Mr. Leo Wallen. I don't know who you are telling in the comment section. I hope you are not responding to Chatan. What do you think? What do you think Macedonia versus Denmark game will be score prediction? Macedonia versus Denmark. Are you talking about is that are they in the World Cup playoffs? Well, I mean, it's too early to say, but I would fancy Denmark because of their pedigree, Then you'd say Sol will say, all right, thank you so much, bro. Then we have Kato, Ponsiano, Kakoza. Yo, nze DJ Kato, ebamunanika atunda Massimo. DJ Kato, tukweyanziza nnyo okutujoininga. For those of you that do not understand the language, that's a local language, Luganda. So it's DJ Kato joining us from Bamunanika. Bamunanika, is that in Luero? I think so. But thank you so much, Kakoza, for joining us. You can also let us know what team you do support down in the comment section. So yeah, thank you guys for all your contributions to the conversation, your comments and your questions. Keep them coming, but also do not hesitate to let us know what team you support, where you're joining us from, and things in that line. But quickly, allow me move on to transfers, because that's where the gist of the conversation is tonight. In as far as things go, first of all, we'll begin off with the done deals. Crystal Palace have wrapped up the signing of Jürgen Strand Larsson in a deal worth 48 million pounds. I think guaranteed fees is about 45 million pounds plus, or 43 plus 5 million pounds thereabout. I need to find out the exact figures, but oh, anyways, I just paused a bit there because of some news regarding Cristiano Ronaldo that have flashed on my dashboard. But like I was saying, that Crystal Palace had completed the signing of Jürgen Strand Larsson from Wolverhampton Wanderers. That deal has been wrapped up. Now, whereas it was expected that Jean-Philippe Mateta would be joining AC Millan. That deal has collapsed or has fallen through because of I think a failed medical from the reports we are getting. AC Milan did a second review or second part of the medical, and it just did not happen. It just did not happen. Everything had been agreed in principle. Hi, John. John Kaji, thanks for joining us. Everything had been agreed in principle, but that deal has not materialized because of what is deemed to be a failed medical. Now, it's not so strange that players fail medicals. You remember, I think it was Victor Boniface who was bound with the move. Was it to AC Milan still? And who failed his medical. And I mean, these things happen, although not as common as you'd expect or want them to be, but they do happen sometimes that a player in a proposed move does fail his medical, and then the other team does not proceed with that transfer. So basically, that's what has happened for Jean-Philippe Mateta. So yeah, Crystal Palace were informed, but they still decided to proceed with their pursuit of Jürgen Strand Larsson, because I know they have that expectation that eventually, somehow, somewhere, Jean-Philippe Mateta could still leave. He's a kind of player, the 28-year French striker, has attracted a lot of interest from the likes of AC Milan, from Juventus, from Aston Villa, from from Nottingham Forest, who at one point made a bid worth about 35 million pounds, which of course they declined. So really, it's been, I can't say it's been interesting, but the transfer window comes with that bit of uncertainty. It comes with that bit of uncertainty when it comes to those kinds of things. So unfortunately, Jean-Philippe Mateta for now does remain at Crystal Palace. Despite rumors that after the collapsed deal, Juventus would still come back in for him, because remember, Juventus also tried to sign Yusuf El Nasiri from Fenerbahce. The deal did not materialize as well. So anyways, plenty of things have been happening during the course of the day. But Crystal Palace have also agreed a fee in the region of 20 million pounds. This is according to David Ornstein of The Athletic, to sign James McNeil from Everton. He says, and I quote, Crystal Palace reached agreement with Everton over potential deal for Dwight McNeil. Sorry, it's not James McNeil, it's Dwight McNeil, a fee worth 20 million pounds in place for the 26-year-old Everton winger, undergoing medical before proposed Crystal Palace move. Rests against time to complete, not guaranteed, may require a deal sheet. So that's what's happened quickly over there. That Nottingham Forest also did reach an agreement with Borussia Mönchengladbach to sign left back Luka Nuts, or Nates, or Nuts, but we'll read it as Nuts. Not not Nuts. Sorry, Luka Nets or Neds. not nuts. When I say nuts, people may get me may get it the wrong way. So to sign the left back, Luka Netz, on a permanent deal. The 22-year-old German youth international is undergoing a medical ahead of completing the proposed move and will sign a 4.5-year contract with Nottingham Forest. Then also Sheffield United did reach an agreement to sign Calvin Phillips from Manchester City. The 30-year-old is being signed on loan until the end of the season. There's no buy option in that deal. So remember, last season he also went on a loan period. I think it was for half season at West Ham. Things did not work out. Ever since Manchester City signed Calvin Phillips, one would easily argue it's like they signed him to send him to the rotting store. He's never been the same player, Calvin Phillips, and yet he was such a huge prospect coming through the ranks at Leeds United and was a very, very critical player during that spell of Marcelo Bielsa with Leeds United. Anyways, moving away from that, today we all know that this report started with Florian Plettenberg. Was it Florian Plettenberg of Sky Sports Germany? That apparently Arsenal were considering making a move for Newcastle midfielder Sandro Tonali. The 25-year-old had caught the attention of the Gunners, who are seeking, or who are keeping their eyes in the transfer window, seeking to find a temporary replacement for Mikel Merino, who is set to undergo surgery on his foot, which will keep him out for an extended period of time. I do suspect, like I said, he will be out for a period of at least 6 weeks, up to 2 months and slightly more. So the expectation is that he could be returning somewhere in April. That's the expectation, or according to preliminary reports, but we'll have to wait and see what comes out when that surgery is done and completed. So because of that injury to Mikel Merino, and also bearing in mind that over the weekend that they had lost Bukayo Saka to a warm-up injury prior to their game against Leeds United, they sought to explore the market and see if they can get a quick deal. And in the wake of those reports, players like Ruben Neves at Al Hilal were pointed fingers at, although that deal was considered largely unlikely. And then this morning, we woke up to the news that Arsenal were interested in the services of Sandro Tonali. Now, as soon as I saw the reports, I said to myself, there's absolutely no way Arsenal can pull this deal off. Why? Because if you're Newcastle, why would you let go of a player like Sandro Tonali when you're still competing in Malpo, France? You're still in the FA Cup. You're at the semi-finals of the EFL Cup, a trophy that you won last season, although you're 2-0 down on aggregate after the first leg at St. James's Park. But it's not too remote to think that you can go and get the better of Manchester City at the Etihad Stadium and stand the footballing world and knock them out. And then you're still in the UEFA Champions League, for which you've already been drawn against Karabakh in the UEFA Champions League playoffs. So why would you choose to let go of a player like Sandro Tonali? So it's almost unthinkable. And then also, you bear in mind that recently, Bruno Guimaraes had suffered an injury that saw him miss out on that game against Aston Villa, which they lost at home by 2-0. And then the subsequent fixture against PSG. Then you also remember the fact that Jolinton suffered an injury in that very 2-0 loss to Aston Villa. So really, it doesn't. What that essentially means is that they are short on numbers, and we also know that there was a team trying to plot a move for Joe Willock from Newcastle. And while Newcastle were open to the idea of selling Joe Willock, the first submission was that they were needing or to at least first find a potent replacement before they could sanction a move. So really, it's almost I just could not see that happen. And I can see I have Jachan Fred saying, bro, how far is a deal for Tonali? Well, take it from me that deal is not happening. Now, like I said, this is according to David Ornstein. Of course, the reports came out during the course of the day from Florian Plettenberg, and I think Nico, was it Nico or Sachatavorile, one of those popular journalists, came out to confirm the story, to say that there was interest from Arsenal. But what we are getting from a very, very reliable source in David Ornstein of The Athletic, who is always very good and spot on when it comes to reporting on transfers and largely Arsenal news. He did say that Sandro Tonali was offered to Arsenal by the agent, so Arsenal explored, but there was no contact between them and Newcastle United over the deal. So nothing will happen this window. The 25-year-old camp put the idea to Andre Bata, so it looked into not as per any player of interest. Looked into as per any player of interest. Newcastle exit now is impossible. Now, for the very reasons I've given you guys, there's no way Newcastle are going to let go of Sandro Tonali, because they are still fighting their way in the Premier League to try and finish within those European places. Arguably, the UEFA Champions League, that's where they would want, to be once again competing next season, because while they are still competing in the UEFA Champions League, the idea of them winning it is still a bit remote. I mean, when you look at what you pass for the top 5, UEFA Champions League title contenders this season, I do not think they are anywhere near that. In fact, out of the remaining 24 teams before the playoffs kick off, you do not put them in the top 10. In any case, for favorites, you'll talk about teams like Bayern Munich, teams like Arsenal, teams like PSG, Barcelona, Real Madrid, Liverpool, with all their pedigree, most successful team in Europe from the UK. You would put Chelsea ahead of them because Chelsea are champions twice of that competition. So the idea that they could win it is a bit remote. Now, in the Premier League, they are 10th on the Premier League log and are what? They are about 8 points off of the top 4, So 8 points is not too big in the Premier League as we know it, where any team can lose to any team. So, and yet we've observed a very inconsistent Newcastle this season, both at home and away from home. So why would they want to further weaken themselves by letting go of arguably one of the best midfielders there is in the Premier League, in Sandro Tonali? So for me, the deal was never going to go through. It was never going to happen. And just as further confirmed by David Ornstein. Now, according to his story or to his report, it's the agents of Sandro Tonali who spoke to Arsenal to say, why not consider Sandro Tonali? We had you interested in a midfielder. And like any sporting director that Andre Bata is, he decided to explore the option to assess the player. And so the player was assessed, but there was no contact between Newcastle and Arsenal on the furtherance of that deal. Perhaps one of the reasons being because Arsenal knew one too well that there's no way that Newcastle were going to let that deal slide, particularly in January. Maybe he can be assessed for the summer, depending on what their needs could be, and things like that. So we'll just have to wait and see on that front. But Sandro Tonali to Arsenal, as of now, that deal is not happening. Anyways, speaking of Arsenal and their pursuit for a midfielder, I do understand why they would consider the idea of trying to get an additional player in the wake of that extended injury period for a player like Mikel Merino, with reports suggesting he could be out for 2 months or even more. Now, given that they are still competing across all 4 competitions, that's the EFL Cup where they are in the semi-finals, having beaten up against Chelsea by 3-2 in the first leg at Stamford Bridge. The second leg is tomorrow. Oh my God, what a goal. Sunderland lead by 3-0. But what a goal that is. Brilliant, brilliant strike, guys. That goal that was scored in the 72nd minute, just a short while back. I've just seen the goal and oh my, what a brilliant strike that is. What a brilliant strike that is from Chamstein Talaubi. Yes, the Moroccan international. Chamstein Talaubi, the Moroccan international. What a beautiful strike. You guys should find ways to watch that goal. So, Anyways, still going back to the Arsenal. So I understand why they feel that they need a replacement because, like I said, they're still in the EFL Cup. Tomorrow they play the return leg against Chelsea at the Emirates Stadium to determine who advances to Wembley, and then on Wednesday, Manchester City will be up against Newcastle to decide who else moves on to Wembley, and then of course, Man City proceed to the weekend where they will play Liverpool, but that's all beside the point. Then they are still in the FA Cup and they are destined to play Wigan Athletic in this month of February. Then they are leading the UEFA, sorry, they are leading the Premier League table with 6 points ahead. So they're trying to really push to win their first league title for the first time in 22 years, which could possibly pass for Arsenal's fourth Premier League title. Then also, we know that they just stopped the summit of the UEFA Champions League group stage or league phase, where they finished with 8 wins out of 8. So they are competing on all 4 fronts of every competition that they are in. Whether they can go on to win all of them, that's a whole different story, or that's perhaps an expectation too big that is not impossible to achieve, given the kind of quality that they do have in their squad. But I do not think a lot of Arsenal fans would be demanding for that. In any case, what they would be demanding for is at least one major piece of silverware. And given where they are in the league, I've seen a lot of Arsenal fans say they would rather win the league than winning the UEFA Champions League. And I understand that. And the reason for that is they do not want to be labeled as bottle jobs because once again they have what could pass for a bit of a healthy lead, even though it does not guarantee that they will win the Premier League title. So they do not want to squander that because they've been there before. Remember the 2022-2023 campaign. They led the Premier League table for 242 days, had a 5-point gap ahead, and that was closed down, and they conceded the title to Manchester City. Subsequent season, they still conceded the title to Man City with a difference of only 2 points. Then last season, they still finished second with 10 points behind the eventual champions in Liverpool. So really, having come that close on three different occasions, they feel now is their biggest chance or best opportunity, especially in a season where other Premier League title contenders and other giants of the Premier League have had their stumbles. They've not been as good as would be expected in any other given season. The likes of Man City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Man United, look at the likes of Newcastle, how they are performing. Look at Tottenham Hotspurs, look at Aston Villa, even though Aston Villa I think are doing really, really well, although they lost over the weekend against Brentford by a goal to nil. That goal scored by Dango Ouattara, who Brentford signed in the summer from Bournemouth for a fee of about £42 million. So really, in the grand scheme of things, I do understand why Arsenal would want to explore the market to try and get that additional midfielder that they would use temporarily in the absence of Mikel Merino. And then they also know one too well that injuries an almost guaranteed occurrence in as far as a complete season is concerned. First of all, they have fevers that Kai Havertz is just returned from a 5 months injury, literally, because he's been out for 5 months. They know Gabriel Jesus just returned from that anterior cruciate ligament injury that kept him out of action for 11 months. Now, usually when you have players out for extended periods of time, their chances of having recurring injuries or experiencing another injury in a short span of time is actually significantly high. Look at the example of Bukayo Saka. Last season, he suffered a hamstring injury that kept him out of action for a period of close on 3 months. And then when he returned, remember early into this season, I think after like 2 game weeks or 3, he suffered a minor hamstring injury that kept him out of action for a couple of weeks. So they have all that in mind. They know that what cost them a chance, a real chance at the Premier League title last season was injuries that cost them, because they got big injuries to big players. Martin Odegaard suffered an ankle injury that kept him out of action for 2 months, and when he returned, was never the same player. Kai Havertz suffered an injury the same season. William Saliba, at the tail end of the season, suffered a hamstring injury. In February, Gabriel Magalhaes suffered a hamstring injury. Bukayo Saka, in addition to that list. And we know Ben White needed surgery last season on his knee. You remember Julian Timber, after Arsenal got knocked out of the UEFA Champions League, he went and had, I think, surgery on his ankle. So they had so many injuries trouble them. We know that Ricardo Carafiori was in and out of the team, and that's why when they went in the summer, they sought to bring in another left back, come centre back in Piero Hincapi. So with all that in mind, they try to assemble a squad that can compete favorably this season. But they also know that for every piece that is pulled out of their chessboard, then it means it is not a complete set. Now, internally or inwards, I still feel that Arsenal do have solutions internally. However, let's not forget the fact that they've sold Alexander Zinchenko, who for me ideally could have been an additional figure in that midfield had they not sold him. But I mean, this Arsenal project seemed to have outgrown him, and that's why he struggled for playing time last season. And they've sold him to Ajax. Initially, they were discussing a loan deal, which they chose to make then permanent for about £1.3 million, and he's joined Ajax. Then they've also let go of Ethan Nwaneri to go to Olympique Marseille on loan until the end of the season. And in that loan deal, there's no clause for having him recalled back, so they cannot recall him back. So that means they are already short of 2 players in that regard. But with that said, I still feel that they have, figures internally. Now, pound for pound, they are not the same or similar players as the Mikel Merino that they've lost, but they do have players in there that can try and help fill that void. First of all, you have Emaz Lewis Kelly, who we know has been played as a left back, but naturally is a midfielder. So given that he struggled for sufficient playing time this season, even playing in that left back role, and because of that, his sort of form has suffered for it. Is a player that you can count on as an option in midfield. Then you do have Christian Nogard, who again, I think, I stand to be corrected. I do not think he started a Premier League game. And if he has, it's not more than one. So Christian Nogard is there. Then you have, fortunately for Arsenal, you've welcomed back Kai Havertz. Now, the last thing about Kai Havertz is, the last thing you would want is to overload him. So you need to be very, very careful with the way you manage his load because he just recovered from injury. So, but at least he's sort of an option in that midfield. We've seen him play in that midfield role against Kairati Amati and then over the weekend against Leeds United. Then also, now that's in addition to the players they have already in Zubimendi, Declan Rice. Now, for me, the shift would be that you get to play Zubimendi in the 8 and then you play Christian Nogard in the 6 in case you need to do that. Now, of course, none of those midfield options or counter options can help up front the way Mikel Merino has done previously. So maybe that's where the shortcoming would be. But at least you may not be overly confident, but you are confident to think or to imagine or to assume or even based on evidence that we've just highlighted that Arsenal do have bodies in that midfield that they can use in the absence of Mikel Merino. Now, so we've talked about Christian Nogard, Maz Lewis Kelly, and Kai Havertz. Those are 3 players that I feel can try and operate in that Mikel Merino zone in addition to what they already have. Like I said, because they are competing in all 4 competitions, this means a lot of games. Literally, it's games have been coming thick and fast. Literally, throughout the month of January, after 2 to 3 days, Arsenal have been playing a game of football. In the month of January alone, they played 9 games. And what excuses them from having a similar tight schedule going into February is because they performed well in the UEFA Champions League at the league stage that they avoided a playoff. Now, when you draw comparisons to a team like Newcastle, they have 2 extra games to play in that same month. When you look at a team like, let's say, Newcastle from the Premier League, because I think they are the only side that finished outside of the top 8, because the other 5 Premier League teams are finished within the top 8, and that's Arsenal, Liverpool, Tottenham, Chelsea, and Manchester City. They finished within those positions. Isabella Martin says hi. Hi, Isabella. Good to have you back on the broadcast, on the channel. Thank you so much for sparing, the time to be part of our engagements. Now, so for me, that's the overview that I can give you about Arsenal and what Mikel Arteta's options will be. Going into this the next couple of months. The only thing he needs to hope for is to have lesser injuries than he's so far had than he's had in the first phase of the season or first half of the season, because we know that during the same spell, players like Christian Nogard, players like Kepa Arrizabalaga, Bukayo Saka, Kai Havertz, of course, Gabriel Jesus, even though his injury was from last season, but he had a bit of a setback during his process of recovery. Players like Ben White, players like Ricardo Carafiori, players like Piero Hincapi, players like Gabriel Magalhaes, William Saliba, I think Declan Rice, Martin Odegaard, 3 injuries. Victor Gyökeres suffered his fair share. So literally, Noni Madueke, almost all Arsenal players have had Leandro Trossard himself, they've had a fair share. Gabriel Martinelli, they've had an injury or 2 here during the course of the campaign. So Arteta's only hope will be that they do not get to suffer as many injuries as they did in the first, half of the season, and then in that way, then they will be able to cope with the demands of the intensity of the fixtures that will be coming their way. But maybe briefly, we can have a brief look at the Arsenal fixtures that will come in the month of February until the March international break, because we know that in March there will be an international break that's coming our way. So, like I told you, tomorrow they are up against Chelsea at 11 p.m. East African time. Then over the weekend, they will play Sunderland in the Premier League at home at the Emirates Stadium. After that, they will play on Thursday away to Brentford in the Premier League. Then over the weekend, which will be a Sunday, they will play at home to Wigan Athletic in the FA Cup, and then that will be on the 15th of February. Then on the 22nd, they will play away to Tottenham Hotspurs, and then they will, on the 1st of March, they will return home to play Chelsea in the Premier League. So that means they're going to play Chelsea 3 times in a space of 1 month and 1 month and a half. And then after that, after the Chelsea game in midweek, they'll play Brighton and Hove Albion. They'll play Brighton and Hove Albion, and then after Brighton, we'll go for the March international break. And after the March international break, that's when we will have. They will play against Everton. They'll play Wolves. They'll play. Yeah, those will be the 2 games in the Premier League that they will play in March after the March international break. But in between there, they will have games in the UEFA Champions League at the round of 16. So really, things are going to come a little bit thick and fast for them. Oh, snap. Guys, I think, let me see. Yeah. I don't know why the feels there's, yes. Now, in there also in March, there's also the finals of the Carabao Cup. So that means if they do manage to knock out Chelsea, they could have a game at Wembley sometime in March, and chances could be that it could be against Manchester City, who they also have a possibility of meeting in the UEFA Champions League. Now, imagine if Arsenal have to meet Manchester City in the EFL Cup as a final, then meet him on the 18th of April in the Premier League at the Etihad Stadium, and then, God forbid, they draw him in the UEFA Champions League somehow, somewhere. Jesus Christ. Anyways, it is what it is. Excuse me. It is what it is. We'll leave it at that in regards to the Arsenal and all their prospects. moving on, that game between Sunderland and Burnley is I don't know why I had too much hopes in this Burnley side, but is in the 89th minute and Sunderland are still leading the game by 3 goals to nil. Those goals are from Chamstain Telawi. The other was scored by Habib Diarra and an own goal by Axel Tuanzebe there. So those are the goals for Sunderland at the Stadium of Light. Like I've told you, their next game for Sunderland will be away to Arsenal. Not going to be an easy game for either team there on Saturday at around 6 p.m. East African time. Moving on, in the other transfer news or transfers that have been making the rounds, in as far as today is concerned, in the morning, of course, I told you about Jeremy Jacquet, who will be joining Liverpool in the summer after they agreed a pre-deal with Stade Rennes worth £60 million with £55 million guaranteed and £5 million in expected add-ons for the 20-year-old French defender to join Liverpool in the summer. Then also Tariq George has just signed for Everton as a new Everton player on loan until the end of the season with an option to buy. That's Tariq George joining the Toffees until the end of the season. Then Leicester City have signed Manchester City attacking midfielder Devin Mukasa. That's Mukasa. I think it's his mom is from the UK, but his dad is a Ugandan. He's signed from Manchester City to Leicester City on loan until the end of the season. So that one is been confirmed. Then after Mukasa, Leicester City will also announce the signing of Dujuan Richards on loan from Chelsea. That is also happened. Then earlier on, it was confirmed a deal was struck or completed between Chelsea to sign Axel Disasi again on loan until the end of the season. So West Ham get themselves Axel Disasi there. That deal was pending because Axel Disasi had not yet given his green light on joining the Hammers, who are fighting relegation. And as things go, it does feel like West Ham, if they are not careful, they could get relegated. And West Ham is one of those last 3 games that Arsenal have at the tail end of the season. Jesus Christ. The last time something similar happened, they forced Arsenal into a 2-2 draw, despite Arsenal taking the lead in that one. Anyways, so that one is happening. Then the other big news in as far as the transfers are concerned is from Saudi Arabia, where Karim Benzema has signed as a new Al Hilal player from Al Ittihad. Yeah, we know that Karim Benzema had contract negotiations with Al Ittihad collapse, and the things got a bit heated, and now he's just signed for Al Hilal. That's where Simone Inzaghi is the head coach or the manager. Al Hilal, where you have players like Joao Neves there. I think Malcolm also played for the same side. Anyways, so that news was confirmed earlier on by Fabrizio Romano, that the former Ballon d'Or winner, joins Inzaghi's project at Al Hilal. Then Alex Saint-Maximin has also joined RC Lens in the French League One. This one's a second on the League One table. Remember, he played for teams like Newcastle. So the agreement has been sealed for him to join RC Lens. That deal is also happening. Then Atletico de Madrid have verbally agreed a deal to sign Rodrigo Mendoza from Elche. Deal worth about £16 million. Worth about 16 million euros plus add-ons as a package for the Spanish midfielder who has accepted the proposal. Atletico de Madrid are going through a rebuilding phase of their squad, and they've signed a great deal of players. players like Alex Baena from Villarreal in the summer, Johnny Cardoso from Real Betis. They signed Matteo Ruggeri, yes. No, Matteo Rutegui, something like that. I think they signed him from Atlanta. Of course, they've also let go of some players like Conor Gallagher, who is left and joined Tottenham Hotspurs, a deal worth about 40 million euros. Of course, the likes of Koki, I've said this before, is coming of age. Simeone's son, Simeone, is one of the potent players that Atletico de Madrid have, but they're going through a rebuilding phase of their own in there. So, yeah, that one is also there. Then, okay. Then Emil Holm did sign at Juventus on 6 months loan with a 3-year contract if the buy clause is triggered. So there's that as well. Then also Atletico Madrid did sign Obed Vargas Obed Vargas from Seattle Sounders. So like I told you, they've been making some moves. Then Arsenal did agree a deal to sign England under-19 international Jadon Dixon on a 4-year contract. Deal completed for about £3.2 million plus add-ons. Arsenal view the player as a massive signing, beating several clubs. That's according to Fabrizio Romano. There's a Scottish player called James Wilson that Tottenham beat Arsenal to his signature, the young striker. So Arsenal apparently were offering a trial, while Spurs came in with an offer of a loan deal with a buy option from Hearts Melderton. They're in the Scottish Premier Division, where our own Uganda Cranes Rogers Mato is playing, made his debut over the weekend. So yeah, that is what is happening. Now, you will see some reports that apparently Sandro Tonali's agent, Giuseppe Risso, denied having any conversations with Arsenal and that they knew that a deal was never going to happen in January. Even be that as of it may, and I do not think the agent would come out to acknowledge, to try and antagonize, his what he has, the kind of relationship that he already has with Newcastle, because sometimes it's not remote to think that a player is offered to another club just to prop up contract talks with his current club, and that it tends to mean more improved terms and things like that when you show that there's interest from bigger clubs in your player. So that's also some old trick in the book. Also, David Fratesi has been subject to transfer speculation from Inter Milan with, Nottingham Forest and I think Liverpool being reported as among teams that were interested. We know that Inter Milan had interest in Curtis Jones, although Liverpool, I thought, were never going to sanction that deal to go through, given how short they are already numbers. Then also at Bayern Munich, Dayot Upamecano did agree to a new deal with Bayern Munich there. So looks like he will be signing a new contract that will keep him at the Allianz Arena in Munich until June 2030. So and I have an Arsenal fan here on the timeline says, when Arsenal win the Premier League title, I will host a party in Kampala to celebrate it. If you're an Arsenal fan in support of this and will attend, reply yeah. He has about 731 comments on that already. Anyways, so okay. Dwight McNeil's move from Everton to Crystal Palace is off. Deal sheet submitted in time, plus 26-year-old Everton winger completed medical, but after Mateta sale collapsed, Crystal Palace changed terms from £20 million purchase to loan with buy obligation and then pulled out. It does feel like their hand was forced a little bit there, because just to be fair to Crystal Palace, their expectation was that Jean Philippe Mateta was going to sign for AC Milan. That means some money was going to come in, and then they would repurpose it on another player. So, but you can imagine, you know, doing a medical and then a deal collapses, how that can affect a player psychologically. Anyways, then there have been multiple reports going on about Cristiano Ronaldo today, about apparently he's unhappy at Al Hilal. Remember, it's not too far back that he signed a new contract, you know. So according to Judge Jesus, Smao and Jose Semedo could all resign from Al Nassr within hours. Cristiano Ronaldo is still refusing to play while the PIF undermines his club and provides favoritism to Al Hilal. Total silence from Ronaldo, but his message is loud and clear. He will not take the pitch until the PIF resolves the internal sabotage and restores the body's power. Looks like, you know, shenanigans going on there in the Saudi Pro League. Now, I do not know the extent of truthfulness to this, but according to Clash report, he says Gian Infantino says that the Russian ban should be lifted. We have to, definitely. He argues that the ban has not achieved anything and only created more frustration and hatred. Says letting Russians play would help. Having girls and boys from Russia play in Europe would help. He also opposes banning Israel, calling it a defeat. Infantino wants a rule change, so FIFA never ban any country because of acts of their political leaders. That's according to Sky News. Okay. Anyways, I will leave that at that. But yeah, expect so many things have gone on in the last couple of hours. I'll need to take interest in that piece there. Anyways, so like I said this days ago, and I think even in yesterday's broadcast or in the morning, that this January transfer window has not felt similar to, you know, all those that we've seen before. I do not know exactly why. I tried to, you know, perhaps blame it that my attention was partly on the AFCON during the start of the window, but it's been fairly slow. Maybe largely because many of the big teams have not been very active in the transfer window to try and land some significant players. Manchester City landed two in McKay and Anton Semenyo. Manchester United did not sign anyone. Arsenal have not signed anyone. Chelsea did not make any major moves besides recalling some of their players out from loan, like Mamadou Sarr from Strasbourg on loan, and then Anselmon, the defender from Borussia Dortmund, back on loan, and then they recalled him and sent him to Strasbourg. And the reason for that is because they got wind of a plot by Borussia Dortmund, who had met the player's parents and his agents and tried to, convince him to, demand for a permanent move to Borussia Dortmund at the end of the season. So they got wind of that and decided to call short his loan spell, and those kinds of things. There's been a couple of other players, I think, whose loan spells have been called short. So Chelsea have not been overly active. Tottenham Hotspurs brought in Conor Gallagher. When you move to teams like Aston Villa, they made some moves, bringing in Douglas Luiz and Tammy Abraham. When you go to Newcastle, not much business was done there. So yeah, it's been that kind sort of transfer window. And yet we know ordinarily some of these clubs usually tend to bring in a player or two during the January transfer window, depending on where their priorities lie or interests during the course of the season. We know that players like Jorginho, players like Leandro Trossard had joined Arsenal during the January transfer window and things like that. Then there were suggestions, and this I think came from, is it Ray Mason, who was saying he was urging a team to take Raheem Sterling. And I'm thinking, I think, yeah, was it urging for Arsenal? I'm not too sure. But if it is for Arsenal, for me, it's a big no. He was at Arsenal last season for the entirety of the campaign on loan from Chelsea. And look what happened. It never materialized. It never realized the benefits it was intended for. So why even bother? We're talking about a player who is not kicked a game of football in more than 6 months. Because Chelsea forced him out and things like that. So really, it's not plausible for any team. However, I do feel that mid-table teams could use the services of Raheem Sterling, or even those kinds of teams that are staring down the barrel of relegation, in this campaign. Anyways, guys, allow me to wrap this one here and wish you well. Thank you so much, Isabella Martin, Fred there, John, Cato Ponciano, Soroth, Mekdan C Edits, thank you so much. Leo, Chetan, thank you so much. Mark Friend, Jesiah, thank you so much, Pedri, and every single one of you that has been a part of tonight's podcast. Thank you so much for your contribution. Thank you so much for your comments, for your likes, for the whole overall engagement. You're choosing to stay with us for purposes of discussion and everything you do to support this channel. I do appreciate it a great deal. Allow me wish you a blessed night, and let's link up again tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. East African time. Stay blessed, and until next time, God willing. Bye-bye for now.